Hey everybody, welcome back to another cozy playthrough of Coral Island. I recorded a ton of footage earlier, and I wanted to try a new format where I just record the gameplay and do a voiceover, just because I know the clicking was has been kind of a lot. But alas, for some reason, the 2 hours worth of footage ended up being just the pause screen for whatever reason. And so that kind of sucks. Because of course, as you can see, like, so much has changed since I last recorded my playthrough. And so I kind of want to use today to focus not on the game itself, but on just my usual talking style of just like sort of being on my soapbox about whatever is going on in my life, or things I'm thinking about. I'm going to try my best not to use the dash feature, because I think that is the thing that is creating all that noise. So it'll just be me trying to do my tasks, or maybe running in circles as I'm getting distracted. So we'll see how it goes. So recently I started reading a book called The Serviceberry by Wall Kimmerer. I kind of bought it somewhat on a whim. My friend told me if I read more books, I would really enjoy that book, and I saw the book and I was like, oh my gosh, there is my favorite bird on the cover. So I went out and I purchased it. And so far it has been really great, and I feel like it's the perfect book to start this new year off with. Just because I think there is so much I am thinking about with Coral Island and the things that this book talks about. And this whole, like, I mentioned this in my tree event video, but Coral Island sort of has this feeling to it that makes utopia feel possible. I don't know if that's like a very big jump, and I think there's definitely other pieces of media that has imagined things like this, and all of my videos have talked about seeing the different inspirations that Coral Island has. Coral Island comes from a legacy of these kind of cozy games and, worlds like this. Like during the pandemic, of course, it was Animal Crossing that really garnered a lot of attention, and for very good reason, right? Like, we all wanted that sort of escape. And as I was scrolling through social media today, I saw a post from someone I don't really follow. I think it was just someone recommended to me. Sorry, I'm trying to find Emma at the same time. This Where's Waldo thing really takes up so much of my time. I am so bad at locating townies. So this creator, and she was talking about how she doesn't need therapy. What she really needs rather is like community, hope for the future, sustainability, community. I already said community. Oh my gosh, she rattles off so many things that I feel like so many of us are fighting for, right? We need like a strong social support system that uplifts the quote unquote worse off of us. Sustainable, like affordable food, sustainable mental health care beyond one-on-one therapy, behind huge paywalls. Sense of belonging, sense of something more than just consumerism, consuming, feeling like our worth is dictated by our possessions and our positions and our tax brackets, I guess. And I think there's just a lot of things that I relate to. And as a mental health practitioner myself, like, I totally agree that one-on-one counseling is not the way to go. Um, Even though I'm privileged enough to have coverage for it right now, and I use it as much as I can, and I believe in it to some extent, there is a lot of things that, need to happen, um, that like CBT simply cannot fix. It's it's a little bit of a scam to make people believe that if they go get counseling, like, their life will immediately improve, or not even immediate, just like improve in general based on this one action. I was also reminded today by the fact that the term self-care, which I believe was coined by Audre Lorde, didn't refer to the rapid like rapid growth of the self-care community, of like just this hyper individualization, doing, like, buying the right things, or I don't know, doing the right things. It was about, like, rest as a radical act, and giving back as a part of that self-care. Like, you can't sustain yourself if you're by yourself. It's sort of being in the community that helps us do what we do, right? So this sort of brings me to Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, The Serviceberry, which I believe just came out a few months ago. And she talks about the things you can find in nature, and just being reminded that the gifts that the earth provides never was intended to have, like, a price tag on it. The way she writes about the serviceberry, or the Saskatoon berry as I knew it, it's so loving, and she talks about the relationship the berry has with both, the human thinking about it, and the role of cedar waxwings, which are my absolute favorite birds, because they are, I think, one of the first birds I ever found when I was learning to bird for the very first time. And they are pretty common, but before I really made a concerted effort to go out birding, like, I feel like there was just so many things I never noticed. And so one of the first things I did notice was the cedar waxwing, and I thought it was just such a gorgeous little guy, little guys, little gals. Yeah, so she talks about how the birds eat the berries and the humans eat the berries without really needing to think about whether or not we deserve the berries. And it just sort of, like, these are the gifts. And she talks about what gifts are. I'm, of course, paraphrasing as I am trying to recall things and play this game. She talks about meaningful gifts are those that can continue on in a cycle. And from my understanding, what that means is when you give a gift, you can sort of pay it forward in some material and immaterial ways. The thing that kind of stuck out to me most in my own context is that I feel quite strongly that I come from a very gift-giving family. Like, gifts are a very big love language for myself and my family, and I think a lot of times people associate that with, like, capitalist greed or, like, consumerism, but I think for us it's really been more like penguin pebbling, like, whenever we think of something or someone and we buy a little gift, Or like, we're shopping and we see something and we pick it up for a loved one, that kind of thing. And this Christmas, what I sort of realized is I feel like my family and I have sort of lost sight of that sometimes, like we still will give things to each other as a show of love and appreciation, but I think we don't spend a lot of time thinking about the thing that we're given. Rather, I feel like we get caught up in the same cycles of like evaluating the value of the object, or thinking about how if I were given this could show me more love because XYZ. And when I returned to the city for Christmas anyway, like, I think I really had a strong sense that the whole town was sort of like this, especially during the holiday season, where people are so caught up in the consumerism of it all that we kind of lose sight on why we do these things and the intentionality behind gifts. I definitely remember as a kid, whenever I received gifts that were more like handmade, I would be like low-key kind of disappointed. And despite all the love and effort that, the person who gave it to me had put into it, I think I would think more about not getting the thing I wanted, which was probably like, I don't know, video games or something like I could buy at a store. Which is like, what's the point, right? And I had a rather striking conversation once with a friend, whose friend I don't know, was just gotten engaged, and he heard about a practice where if the man buys a ring, the woman should gift something back as a sign of love and appreciation. And this man had asked for something very expensive because he said that he spent a lot of money on the ring, and so he wanted to, I guess, like, get the same value back. And coming from like an East Asian culture, I feel like that's pretty typical. I definitely grew up around a lot of folks, and like still know a lot of folks who really put a lot of emphasis on material value of an object, and like truly the worth of the object is sort of the worth of love in a way, and yet it's like it's never sort of enough. Like it comes to a time where you have to show your love in other ways as well, and so like there's no end in sight for this kind of gift giving, So in all honesty, I was quite blown away to see Robin Kimmerer's words on the page describing this exact phenomenon. And I think it's one of those things you sort of know intellectually. Like there's heaps and heaps of media about appreciating the little things, and there's a lot of folks that talk about putting money into something that aligns with your values and how that is more fulfilling than anything you could ever get. And I think I agree with this on an intellectual level, but I kind of love the way that Robin Kimmerer sort of describes this feeling as a cycle, like it's a flow of love, and she talks about how the sun is sort of it's a replaceable energy that goes into plants, and the plants uphold the whole like animal ecosystem, and then etc., etc. And I think this is all stuff that we've all know or heard of, through school, or through observation and through admiration of this world we live in. And yeah, like it was something that felt so obvious and yet so new at the same time to me, to think about our society is structured in a way, the way like the natural world is structured. What does it mean to create a world in which we don't have to feel like we have to earn a thing, earn a place, a right to live, and food? Like, how do we view ourselves and the people around us and those of us like, our fellow human beings, in the way that the natural world sort of views us? There's like a competition in everything, including existence, and like happiness and suffering, and I don't know, it's just everything is so exhausting these days. I would say the last year was a pretty hard year for a lot of people. Um, my friends and I have been quite active politically. We've been thinking a lot of things. We've been rethinking a lot of things. We've been, dreaming of ways to like transform the places that we love and transform our communities in a way that's actually healing and sustainable over a long period of time. So in reading Robin Kimmerer's book, I really wondered how we can find a replaceable source of energy that could move our society forward in a way that is sustainable, and in a way that we don't feel like we have to earn, unlike everything else in this dang world. Because I feel like we are sort of hitting a time in post-capitalism that just nothing really is working out for anybody. Like the rise of food prices is insane. The lack of funding in anything geared toward the community, like libraries are losing funding. Everywhere you go, it's all about protecting the status quo that is falling apart, and all of us are just supposed to shrug and be like, well, that's the way it is. And in reality, so much of what we have today, the way we consume and the way we like, not just goods, but like the way, the amount of plastic we use, the way our TV and movie industries run, the music industry, so many things like came out of the 80s. And, to be generous, the 20th century, which isn't really that long ago. So there's nothing that is really sacred preventing us from changing the way things, quote unquote, are. Because the way things are for some people is not what it is for others. And I think this is a reality that many of us understood during the last American elections. And I think by understanding that, you sort of understand that whoever gets elected is going to not work in favor of the people. And so picking the less evil has actually created a phenomenon where things get more and more fascist. And I think that's just how it's been going for many countries. So yeah, like it's a really, really weird time to be around, be alive. And so to go back to Robin Kimmerer, the way she talks about the replaceable energy, I think she surmises that love is like the sun, where love is the driving force that is replaceable. And I mean, I love that. But it's also something that it feels very ephemeral and hard to define, and like I'm not sure about. And to be honest, like I haven't finished reading the book yet. I've only read a couple of chapters. So maybe she will talk about it. At the same time, I think a lot of great writers have talked about love as this powerful driving force. Like love for your community, love for the potential futures, generations, and love for our movements and love for our values. I don't know. I think there are lots of beautiful driving forces that are producing movements and communities in this world. And so I'm definitely very curious to continue reading and continue thinking about this. But how Coral Island sort of ties into this is this island, again, like makes things feel so possible. Like when I went to that tree planting event, I said this in my video too, but it felt like it wasn't impossible to create a utopia like this. Like it didn't feel impossible to gather a group of people together to plant trees. It didn't feel impossible to actually, create a society where we do things for each other without thinking about the monetary gains and losses of every action we take. Like, there's no value, there's no monetary value assigned to there's only intrinsic value in the action or the items that you are gifting to people. Like people don't need to feel like they've earned it or they don't deserve it. Like that's a crazy world to think about, in the sense that like I'm definitely someone who feels all sorts of levels of guilt when people do one nice thing for me. And it's always like feeling like I have to earn my place. And I think that's why in mental health spaces we talk a lot about boundary setting. We talk a lot about voicing your needs, all these things that just like doesn't work in a lot of cultures, or at least not currently. Oh, this is nice. And I think in this game, like grandma just sent me some food. Like I think in this game you see examples of just random gifting all the time. And I think this is a very common game concept too. Like characters will ask you for an egg, and so you get them an egg, which I definitely forgot to do. I hope my ducks are okay. Ducks and chickens. Oops, I forgot to feed them. And like I have this quest right now where a character has requested an egg, and so I will need to feed my chickens and so that they can lay one for me and I can give it to her. And like I wouldn't say it's very difficult to give her an egg. Like I think that's great. And in the game, of course, she'll pay me. But even if she doesn't, like it doesn't really feel like it's a hard thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I got a melon. My first melon. When we don't live in a mindset of scarcity, there's a lot of things that feel a lot more possible. In the egg example, because I have a bunch of chickens who lay eggs every day, it feels like literally nothing. Like I'm not thinking about the value of this egg. I'm not holding on to this egg, even though I'm not thinking about how I could sell the egg for more money instead of giving it out for free. So even if this character doesn't pay me for the quest, like because I have a source of eggs, it doesn't feel any type of way to help someone out, whereas I feel like currently we are in this world of scarcity where we're constantly having to compete for resources. So to give up resources for anybody, regardless how big or small, it feels like a much bigger deal than it ought to be, right? Like the price of eggs right now is like $7 at the farmer's market for a dozen. And like $7 used to be able to get you a whole meal. And and so giving up that one egg, like, it feels more difficult than it would be otherwise, like if I had chicken. So my thought right now in like thinking about Coral Island and its like wonderful diversity and lack of scarcity, I struggle a lot with money, but it's still like, now that I have gotten going, like there's a lot more like replenishable goods on my farm that makes me a little less worried about money. And I don't think it's too far off to do this kind of thing. I think everybody and their mothers have talked about, dreamed about that commune living. And yes, like farming is hard. I've worked on several farms in the past, and it is hard work, but I think it could also be very fulfilling to not spend so much money on food these days. Like, one of my friends was just talking about how like a celery, like one stalk of celery costs like $12 or something at certain stores. It's like, what is this? Like, people are not making that much more. Like, I don't feel like living should be this hard. And it's not like that money is going to the farmers. So it feels like this very impossible storm of like, we have to consume in order to survive, and by consuming we are enabling, and it's like this vicious cycle that we can't escape from. And I think one of the things that makes Coral Island what it is like this, being able to use this giant plot of land. Like, in real life, land is the source of war, the source of so much violence, right? And the source of so many things, so many problems. At the same time, I may have talked about this before, but when you look at places like Italy, where they take care of land that they've had for generations, and like they have so much visible love for their food and their ingredients, and the way the ingredients are grown. And places like Italy, it is definitely a privilege to be able to cultivate your own land like that, and be able to hold land like that for generations, and be able to show your reverence and respect for the land in the way that they do. Because there are lots of places like Gaza where the land, part of the colonial project is to devastate the land that people are on, right? Is to burn down multi-generational love for the place. And that's the same thing happening with many indigenous people fighting for sovereignty. It would be interesting and perhaps a little novel, believe it or not, to see what people who love the land can do to the land. I would be interested to know how things unfold in the next few years, because I feel like a lot of people are understanding and are becoming really fed up with the way our societies run. Like, people generally understand that, oh my gosh, people generally understand that a lot of what we have are built on the backs of others. It's a lot of what we have is stolen from others. Like, there's so much that's a part of our world that have so much potential to change for the better, you know? Different ways of doing things that are better for everyone. In the microcosm of anti-racist work, it really shouldn't be that hard to simply have and retain and be able to protect racialized voices in decision-making places. Because if we were to work with racialized people anyway, let's say at organizations that see primarily racialized clients, wouldn't it make sense to hire more people who reflect that population and understand the needs of that population. And of course, I don't have full solutions to everything, but one thing I can appreciate is seeing the way that new organizations and young people are engaging in transformative work. Like, there is a lot of work being done. And so I feel quite hopeful. And I think even works of art, media like Coral Island, being able to show us a society in which I want to talk to the people in this town, because even though they say the same things all the time, it's like I'm kind of attached to them. Like, I love seeing them out in events, and I know that everyone has their own life, and it's kind of cool. Like, this is a community that can exist and thrive together if given like the resources to make sure everybody has what they need to exist and thrive, by even just having beautiful public spaces. I'm gonna go to the community center and hope it's open right now, but this community center is absolutely aspirational and not impossible to build. Like, I think we just need some sort of incentive. Like, there is this beautiful yoga room, this I think it's like this accessibility room. I don't even know why. This a mobility center, free wheelchair rental. Like, this is a genius idea. The library's here. There's a pet shelter here, and like multi-use spaces. This is something I think some places are already doing with like malls that have been closed for years. Like, people are building things from old malls, and I think that's like, people can repurpose these things. It's amazing. It's just, yeah, like right now we think of everything as how does it make money in order to sustain itself? Like, how does it make enough to sustain itself? How do we get people to work here and pay them a livable wage? Like, these are all very real problems. But I also feel like it's not impossible to conceive of a world where we gradually have more and more resources, like libraries, for different things, so that we don't need to buy our own things. I don't think it's impossible to conceive of a community where we can help each other out, right? Like, provide mutual aid. Money is sort of the big thing. And I wonder if we might just eventually find ways around money. There are just so many brilliant thinkers on these types of topics. I don't think I'm one of them. I'm really just sharing ideas that I've read in the past and have, talked to friends about. And yeah, I think as more and more people get fed up, we are going to find ways of enacting mutual aid and providing community care. So it's kind of, as much as it is like kind of a horrible time to be alive in many ways, it's also kind of exciting to see what the next step is going to be, because in the past, many of us had the privilege of not knowing, and now that we know, I think more of us know, there's less room for bullshit. There's more room for good shit, So there's gonna be more thinkers coming together and more people willing to enact more like community-oriented ideas. I don't know. It's just the world can go in so many directions. I don't think it's all bleak out here. And so for the year of 2025, all I'm going to hope for is to do my best with the circumstances I have. I don't really have any resolutions this year. I want to read more, but I'm not going to make that a resolution. I would like, horrible, wild, and crazy circumstances to stop happening to me. I would like for my loved ones to be happy and healthy, and yeah, those are kind of my hopes and dreams. And doesn't mean I'm gonna quit this work. I'm looking forward to seeing whether I can make myself useful this year to the causes I care about. And yeah, this time of our lives it can be so stressful, but empires rise and fall. It is the more fascist the world becomes, the more community minded the people become. Lots of people didn't really think we would see a free Syria in their lifetimes. Who's to say we can't see a free Palestine? Who's to say we can't see a free everybody? The more people come together, the more opportunities going to be for people to talk. There's more opportunities for people to care. And I feel like everybody's fed up, and that can only show up in a few ways before the pendulum swings again. So yeah, I am dreaming of a Coral Island type of future where we can all have our needs met, where we can all thrive, where we can have cute little pets, and nobody's hungry, and we all care about each other, and we live in a world that can beautifully combine spirits of the land and the excitement of new technology in a way that isn't destructive and money oriented and wild. People can make art, people can read books, people can do all these things to nourish their hearts and not their wallets. So yeah, until next time, thank you for listening.